is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. Then it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes. It is Friday, finally, June 3rd, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us here as we take you into the weekend on the NORML Network. We are having so much fun here in the studio, getting the Liebermater to work. I hope you enjoy every noon hour now. We now have the Video Lunch, a selected random video clip playing straight up at noon. So follow up on those. You'll catch some of my old speeches from HempFest, some of the NORML conference events, and so forth. All right, joining us here in the studio, as always, is the engineer, Ganja John.
Oh, my button.
Like I said, we're still working stuff out on the Liebermater.
That actually was my fault.
Well, what's your plans for the weekend, John?
I'm going to go down to the garden again, it looks like, and do some more work.
More work in the garden. I love hearing that. Also joining us from our virtual studio in beautiful Grastoria, Oregon, is the lovely Cannabis Carrie.
Hello, and it is beautiful today. The sun is out. It looks like a postcard. I wish you could all be here.
I know. It sounds beautiful other than the people bugging you at your house, Carrie.
Yes, I'm hoping this is the end of my fight with the construction crews I've been fighting with for the last 2 years. But I think they got all their equipment out today, so maybe that's the last I'll see of those D-bags.
Yeah. While everyone else at NORML is up at Aspen for the Aspen Legal Seminar, we are here holding down the fort and keeping you informed on the latest breaking news. Carrie's going to bring you the hemp headlines right after the first break, so what do we got today?
Well, today we're going to talk about two different dispensary measures from two different states. And you know, Russ, I really feel like this situation is coming to a head with the dispensaries in all of the medical marijuana states, and the Justice Department is going to have to come up with some answers real quick. We're going to talk about that, and also a great story that came from Steve Elliott from Toke of the Town about what's going on in Scotland. I can't wait to tell you guys about that one.
All right, looking forward to that. Also on today's show, Herb Thrasher from Herb Age Designs is going to be calling in, and he's made of metal, and he's bringing us some great Rockin' Friday music today from the Clintons. The song is called Free Ride in a Cop Car. I've had a couple of those. And half past the hour, we're going to speak with Steve Bloom in our entertainment report, our Celeb Stoner entertainment report. He's going to tell us a little bit about that press conference with the world leaders that we talked about the other day.
Yeah.
He was there. He was at the press conference. So he's going to tell us about that and reviewing a couple of movies, Hangover 2, of course, and something that I know will be near and dear to Cannabis Carrie, the Mr. Nice movie, the story of Howard Marks. We'll be getting to that at half past. And then at the end of the show, a little time for some radical ranting. We'll talk about that Vermont dispensary bill, some stuff from Eric Holder, and more in the Radical Rant. So stick around. It's NORML Show Live, voice of the Marijuana Nation. See you in just a sec.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
NORML Show Live is actually live every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Right now, you're grooving to our daily toker tunes.
Been busted? Need a lawyer? Call the NORML Legal Committee for an attorney near you. Find one at norml.org. Remember, attorneys are cheaper than a lifelong criminal drug record.
It's that freedom. I'm free to do it.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
The law to allow dispensaries in Vermont was signed by Governor Peter Shumlin on Thursday. The Burlington Free Press highlighted a story today about the necessity of giving medical marijuana patients a choice in the state to grow their own or purchase it from a safe, legal dispensary. Sue Thayer knows all too well about the need for medical marijuana. Her oldest son, Tristan Thayer, battled leukemia and found some relief after learning to grow his own. He eventually lost his battle with the disease, but her other son, Max, had an ailing kidney. As they desperately waited for a transplant, she used the leftover marijuana from her deceased son's garden to help Max cope with weight loss and poor appetite and general pain. It allowed him to eat, put a few pounds on his shockingly thin frame, and gave him sufficient energy to attend his high school classes. Max has suffered from renal disease since infancy. When they ran out, Sue tried to buy some marijuana to help her son out on the street in Rutland. She said that once was enough. It was such a frightening experience. She decided to take matters into her own hands, take her chances, and try to grow a patch of cannabis in a secluded spot in her backyard. Before they could harvest, a helicopter flyover spotted her garden, and she got a visit from the police. She says the whole incident was very traumatic because she had just over 25 plants. She was charged with a felony. She tried to argue that she grew the plants out of necessity, but the Vermont Supreme Court ruled she had another option. The medical marijuana program in Vermont would have let her register and grow a limited quantity of marijuana indoors only, but it wasn't until later in 2007, the year Sue Thayer was charged with a felony for cultivating marijuana for her ailing son, that the legislature expanded the list of conditions along with raising the mature plant limits to 7. Until that expansion of conditions, Max would not even have qualified. Today, Max and his new kidney are one of the 351 people on the state's medical marijuana registry. Thankfully, Sue Thayer did not have to go to jail because her case was referred to diversion, a decision she says that she is thankful for, but the case cost her family both financially and in stress. Both she and Max attended yesterday's signing ceremony and celebrated its passage. With the passage of the new bill in Vermont that will allow the state to have 4 dispensaries, patients will have a choice and an option when their medicine runs out. Representative Sandy Hawes, who helped move the bill through the legislature this year, said the new law will fill a gap that the last 2 cautious steps in the medical marijuana law had failed to address, giving patients a legal and safe access to quality marijuana at reasonable prices. She said families of sick people do not want to deal with criminals, and not everyone can grow marijuana successfully. Now that the dispensary law has passed, would-be operators will have to wait for the Department of Public Safety to issue the rules. The law states so far that the number of plants a dispensary can have is to be capped at 1,000. There can only be 4 dispensaries in the entire state, and the fees are skyrocket high. You will need $2,500 just to apply for a license, then $20,000 for your first year's license, and $30,000 for subsequent annual licenses.
Wow, pretty tough licensing fees there, but it is great news to hear that Vermont is going forward with state-regulated medical marijuana dispensaries. gee, what is it in the water up in Vermont that we don't seem to have up in Washington State? Why is it that the governor there, the Governor Shumlin there in Vermont, doesn't seem to be afraid of those U.S. attorney letters and doesn't seem to be afraid of the threats that there'd be federal prosecution of his state employees? Why is it that Governor Brewer in Arizona can't drink a little of that water that Governor Shumlin up there in Vermont is drinking? Maybe it's the maple syrup. Maybe that's it. Maybe the maple syrup gives you some sort of courage to be able to stand up for the sickest and most disabled people in your state. And maybe that maple syrup gives you some sort of courage to, actually be a leader. Be a leader and stand up for your people and fight against a tyrannical federal government that would seek to lock people up for being sick. Whatever it is up there in Vermont, I'm hoping they get some to Arizona and to Washington State and to Rhode Island sometime soon.
And speaking of Rhode Island, the United States Attorney General Eric Holder was in Rhode Island yesterday and made a comment that suggests the Justice Department is planning on working with governors of medical marijuana states to reach a resolution on the establishment of dispensaries. He was in the state to attend a news conference at the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence in Providence. When he was peppered with questions about dispensaries and the Justice Department's plan, he said, quote, "We are in the process of working on these issues with the U.S. attorneys for Rhode Island and other U.S. attorneys across the country. My hope is that sometime in the not-too-distant future, it will be addressed." His cautious comments were to patients and would-be dispensary owners who have been waiting 2 years for the state to make rules regarding dispensary licensing since the passage of a dispensary bill in Rhode Island. In the last few months, U.S. attorneys in many medical marijuana states have been sending out letters as federal prosecutors reserving their right to prosecute anyone affiliated with dispensaries, a threat that has got a varying response from state to state. The letter that reached the hands of Arizona Governor Jan Brewer prompted her to file a lawsuit to seek clarification before the state's medical marijuana program moves forward and begins the licensing process for dispensaries. In Rhode Island, there are 3 proposed dispensaries that are on hold while the state regulators decide how to proceed. Joanne Lepend, the executive director of the Rhode Island Patient Advocacy Coalition, says the threat of a federal crackdown is hurting patients nationwide. She says it will ultimately force patients waiting on the dispensaries to find it illegally on the streets or turn to prescription narcotics that are far more harmful, expensive, highly addictive, and with serious side effects. Lebanon has made a point of separating her group seeking medical marijuana from those who advocate for legalization for all adults. Attorney General Holder also said that he was wary of dispensaries becoming a tacit form of legalization. Earlier this week, Rhode Island Senator Rhonda Perry and Representative Scott Slater, both Providence Democrats, met with Governor Chafee to press him to award state licenses to the dispensary groups. The governor said that he will continue to have discussions with the governors in the other medical marijuana states before making his final decision. Later that day, Representative Slater introduced 8 medical marijuana patients to the full House of Representatives and, speaking on their behalf, urged the legislatures to pressure Governor Chafee to license dispensaries. Some of those patients then went to the governor's office and delivered a letter that in part said, "The patient community is tired. We are tired of legislative hurdles, administrative delays, and political interference. We are desperately seeking compassionate leadership on this issue. We respectfully ask that you join the many other governors throughout the country who are moving forward on state laws that allow for safe patient access to medicine." Chafee, who eventually did come out and meet with the patients, told them that he would need a guarantee from the Justice Department that they will not raid and shut them down before he would proceed. So a lot going on there in Rhode Island and many of the other medical marijuana states, Russ.
Yeah, well, let me get to a couple things on this. First of all, and this also goes back to that Vermont story as well. I like how in the Vermont story they had that letter saying there's a necessity for patients to be able to have the choice between growing their own medicine and being able to buy some at a dispensary. And, this is the thing about medical marijuana is it's not going away. They're going away. There's always going to be medical marijuana states and medical marijuana users. So it's the best thing to do from everyone's point of view here is to have good regulations that keep everyone safe and address the issues that all sides bring to the table here. It just blows me away when we talk about this dispensary issue and we get comments from the Attorney General here, Eric Holder, saying he's worried about it becoming a tacit form of legalization. That if we have these dispensaries, if people go there, it might be a tacit form of legalization, which kind of says, oh no, there could be a problem. Somebody who's not really sick might go into a store that's only allowed for adults only and might show some ID and get a hold of some marijuana and smoke it. Which is what they're already doing. They're already smoking pot. Every time that whole idea of this abuse of medical marijuana comes up, it always cracks me up because to say that it's abuse, you'd be saying that someone who is healthy went to the trouble of seeing a doctor, getting medical records, applying with the state, turning in paperwork, registering their address, going to the dispensary, showing ID, getting some marijuana, and smoking it. And what would be the huge harm of that? But still, I'm glad to see that we're moving forward on the dispensaries. And it seems to me that the Attorney General Holder has just come to the realization there's just not enough federal resources to bust all of these states and all these governors if they go forward with dispensary plans. And he wants to get a little ahead of the curve here. Now, the threatening letters have worked so far in places like Arizona and Washington State. But as Vermont moves forward, as Rhode Island moves forward, as more states move forward, and then it's found that, hey, what do you know? The feds didn't go after the state employees. He knows that's just going to mean more and more dispensaries. So I'm glad everyone's decided to come to the table here and decide how these dispensaries should be run. Let's hope that we get the best form of regulation possible.
And in a story right out of George Orwell's 1984, oh no, I'm sorry, this actually came from Steve Elliott of Toke the Town, who found an article from Scotland this week about a Scottish pub helping local police check for illegal drugs. The city of Shindoskley, Northfield, and Bridge of Dawn were the latest targets in a larger police plan of enforcing drug policies called Operation Maple. Several pubs volunteered to take part in that operation that allowed police officers to staff the front door to check patrons with a device that would swab their hands for drug residue. Anyone whose hand sweat tested positive for drugs was spoken to by the police and searched. It was called Pub Watch Scheme, and the local inspector, Watt, said that the operation was a success, even though no drugs were actually found. But 217 pub patrons were tested, and out of those, several tested positive in the hand swab. Since no additional drugs were found, they were all issued a warning and allowed to leave. They were also trying to cut down on anyone under the legal age of 18 to enter the pub. Calling underage drinking and drugs linked to antisocial behavior, Inspector Moray Watt said that the communities under his watch should feel assured that they will continue to target those that break the law.
Yeah, I love the places that are established to dispense hard legal liquid drugs are helping the cops stamp out all of their competitors. I love that that's happening. Okay, so we're swabbing their hands at the front door to see whether they've had any drug residue on them, and they find a few people that do, give them warnings and send them on their way. How much you want to bet they're not coming back to that pub? You know, I wouldn't. You swab my hand and you catch weed residue on me and give me a lecture? Yeah, I'm not coming back to that pub. This is insane, trying to enlist pubs catching people using drugs when they're going to come in there that night and drink a whole bunch of Guinness, right? But we're worried about the pot. We're worried about the drugs. Oh my God. And shame on these pub owners for getting involved with this, for wanting to volunteer to help this out. Again, it seems to me like looking after one's own bottom line. Go after your competitors. Make sure the people aren't staying home and smoking a joint when they could be out in the pubs drinking some beer. This is a sad story. Sad to hear it. All right, folks, coming up later on the show today, we are going to be speaking with Steve Bloom from celebstoner.com. He's got information for us from that press conference that was just held from the world leaders that declared that we should legalize marijuana and look at ending the war on drugs. But I wanted to also give you some information on the NORML network. We're here 24/7, 365, and you can always find stoner music or a great marijuana podcast no matter when you tune in. We've been adding a few shows, and I just wanted to let you know what was happening because with the Libremator here, we're adjusting our lineups a whole bunch. So let me give you the rundown. At 3 and 9, both AM and PM, you're going to get a daily Toker Tunes hour of music, right? So if it's Roots Monday, you're going to get an hour of blues. If it's Electric Tuesday, you're getting an hour of dance music and so on. That's at 3, 9, 3, and 9. Also, I've made an adjustment to the afternoon schedule from 9 a.m. all the way until the beginning of this show, a 4-hour block of music. The first hour block will be the daily Toker Tunes. Then at 10 and 11, a random block of great music. More Toker tunes from that day. And then at noon, we'll have your noon video lunch as well as more tunes. So 4 hours of tunes before we begin the shows every day. Also, some live shows here on the network to let you know. Irie Island Hour is live at Fridays at 8 o'clock. Ganja John Show is live Fridays at 9 o'clock.
Yep, we do them back to back.
So they'll be back to back, but I'm going to replay Ganja John on Wednesdays at 8 too, so you can catch them then as well. Also, debuting on the network, yesterday we had Civil Disobedience Radio, which was a great show to listen to. Tomorrow on the network, on Saturdays and Sundays, we're going to have some lineup as well. On Saturdays, you'll get Grateful Dread's Potpourri at 1 p.m. with replays at 5. And then on Sundays, you'll get the Libra Lounge at 1 p.m., replays at 5 p.m., featuring our own lively Libra, who's in the chat room, and the donator of the Libramator software. Check it all out, Normal Network, all week long.
What do you think about a break, Chris?
I think it's the last break of the weekend, and we're low on all the jars are low. We'll have to figure something out on that, but let's take a break.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Normal Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would say to South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The world's greatest cannabis competition is coming back to the Bay Area. Over 100 strains of medical marijuana will go head-to-head to see who's the dankest in California. Indicas, sativas, hybrids, concentrates, edibles, plus THC, CBD, and CBN testing. The High Times Medical Cannabis Cup, June 25th and 26th at the Concourse Exhibition Center in San Francisco. It's gonna be awesome. Get your tickets at medcancup.com.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Our marijuana laws are terribly unfair, and they make criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges, and we are unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They are average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. And it's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
76% of Americans no longer support arresting and jailing marijuana smokers, and nearly as many support the medical patients having access to medical marijuana. And over 80% of our citizens now believe the war on drugs is an ineffective failure. So the question is, when will the government's misguided war on adult marijuana smokers finally end? When? Simple. When you and your like-minded friends, family, and coworkers get involved with an organization such as the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as NORML. My name is Keith Stropp, and I founded the organization in 1970. Contact us at NORML, toll-free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization's up-to-date webpage at www.norml.org.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today, we take you into the weekend with Rockin' Friday. Our segment features the best of rock, metal, punk, and jam band music. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Normal Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, every Friday it's Rockin' Friday, and you get to hear Rockin' Friday music at 3, 9, 3, and 9, and of course right here at 20 after the hour with our own Herb Thrasher from Herb Age Designs. How you doing, Herb?
All right, man. What's going on, guys? How you doing in this sunny weather? Even Astoria's got sun, I hear.
I know, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
Amazing thing. We are just having a good time here working with the new Libra software. We can't wait to get you in the studio, record some voiceovers for some of these rock tracks. That'll be cool.
Yeah, let's do that here soon. I'm going to spend the weekend with the family, and then I'm going to see them off to Alabama next week, and I'm going to have some time to catch up on a lot of things that I've fallen behind on. So maybe next week we can have some fun.
That sounds great to me.
And one of those things is partying with Ganja John.
That's right. Well, Ganja John, I'm going to get him to take me to Helium, man. I'm fired up. I want to go to Helium. I've heard so much about Helium, and I'm going to go there and see a comics, man. Let's go laugh. You know, what's wrong with laughing?
We got it. We're ready. I got a table right up front for you.
Who's up next weekend, by the way?
Oh, God, I don't know, but I did just find out that Jay Moore and Gilbert Godfrey got booked for this month.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to the rockin'. We got to get our horns up and metal out here with Herb Thrasher. So what do we got today?
Right on. Let's go to Montana. We've got some Democrats there that decided to start a band. I'm assuming that one, guys. So the band is called the Clintons, and they got their start about 9 years ago at a frat party. So maybe that was the deal, Russ. There's some Democrats. They were partying one night, a bunch of beer drinking going on, and they said, hey, let's go for the Clintons.
Hey, maybe they're just big fans of Parliament Funkadelic, and they like George Clinton.
Oh, dude, that's better, man. You win. All right, that's it. All right, since then, they've played 1,000 shows, which allowed them to tour all over the country, and they've played with some great bands like Dierks Bentley, Bare Naked Ladies, and Kentucky Headhunters. A few fun Clinton facts. They've been on CNN Live and Fox News. I don't know if that's fun, but yep, there you go. This is a great one right here. Everyone should have this on their resume. Officially endorsed by Jim Beam. All right.
Yeah.
See, they've got some supporters, dude. And they're 5-time winners of the Bozeman Best Of. So there you go.
All right.
The song Free Ride in a Cop Car is a fun rocking song, blending their rock, pop, and roll, jam bandish rhythms to form the Clintons' original sound. So you guys can check these out. Go to their MySpace page /The Clintons, and they also have a website, theclintonsband.com. You know, one cool thing about these guys, too, is they give their music away. They have a little different take on the whole industry. You know how the industry, it's kind of, some say it sucks, some say it's dead. They don't know if you should buy a CD, buy a song anyway. They say screw all that. We'll give you our CDs. You give it to your friends. Just come see us and buy a shirt. And so definitely go there. You guys can get some free songs, free music, and check them out. The song is a great reminder that a free ride in a cop car is not what we want and ask for. So always remember, guys, the feds want you in jail, the cops want you in their cop car, and that's not what we want. So keep fighting, guys. We're going to win this war. Have a rockin' Friday. Have a good weekend. Turn it up.
All right, this is the Clintons with Free Ride in a Cop Car. Thanks, and check out herbagedesigns.com.
Perfect getaway, and it's our proverbial payday in a loser sort of way. Take the keys, take the back roads, and I hear it's looking good for a couple of criminals. But it never goes as planned. You get run down by the man, and instead of beating till the whole heart of the games and pulling off the perfect scam, you know we're looking at a free ride in a cop car. The view's not what I expected. Free ride in a cop car, yeah. Then again, the view's not so bad. Not so bad. I knock on the door. Who could it be? Well, there's a big man in a blue uniform, and he's staring down on me. How'd you find us? Where go wrong? And I see we left the truck out front as he's throwing the bracelets on. Well, it never goes as planned. You get run down by the man, and instead of beating Halo or horn on the games and sipping on a black and tan, you know we're looking at a free ride in a cop car. The view's not what I expected. Free ride in a cop car, yeah. Then again, the view's not so bad. Not so bad. Free ride in a cop car. Free ride in a cop car, yeah.
Want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
This is Radical Russ reminding you to support your local gardener and buy American. You know, just generally speaking, and not in reference to anything that could be construed as an act of illegal commerce, of course.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more.
Legalize it. Don't criticize.
This is Peter Tosh for NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Did you know that more than 400,000 Americans were arrested last year for the possession of marijuana? People are being sentenced to up to 40 years for even standing beside a joint. Well, I think it is definitely time for you to help doing something towards this. To find out what you can do, just write NORML, NORML,
1600 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 2006. That's 1600 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20006.
Help NORML to help protect your rights.
As High Times Senior Cultivation Editor, I'm often called into the field and asked to sample or even identify exotic strains of marijuana in their natural habitat. Now, for the first time, I've compiled more than 120 of my favorite strains into this single field guide designed to fit into your pocket as you travel the world in search of your favorite plant. From a friend's closet grow room to the wilds of Northern California, this single guide covers all of today's best-known strains, plus heirlooms and throwbacks, including High Times quality photos and information on each variety's genetic heritage and growing characteristics, plus my personal notes on aroma, flavor, and potency. So this is Danny Danko, author of the official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains, wishing you good times and great ganja.
The official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains is available at hightimes.com and finer bookstores.
Everyone move. When it gets to start nice. Marijuana culture is infused throughout America and the world. As we round out the week, we take a look at the 420 phenomenon in movies, TV, music, and sports with former High Times editor and author of Pot Culture, Steve Bloom, in our celebstoner.com entertainment news. All right, we're getting out back to New York, and Steve Bloom is on the line with us. Welcome back, Steve.
Hi, Russ. How are you?
Good, doing good. And, of course, this is your busy season. Once we hit summertime, we got all the summer touring festivals with the music. We've got the hemp stocks that are happening. And, of course, the summer movie season kicks off as well. And I know you've got a couple of movies to tell us about here. Let's get to it.
Well, I just reviewed Mr. Nice. Mr. Nice is not The Hangover 2 as far as everybody knowing about it, unfortunately, but it's probably a better movie, especially for our crowd. Mr. Nice is about Howard Marks, the marijuana and hash smuggler from the United Kingdom who was born in Wales and grew up in the 60s. People probably know of him just based on the book alone, Mr. Nice, and also the seed strain that was created around his name, Mr. Nice. So probably a lot of the people out there who are listening are familiar with Howard Marks, if not Howard Marks per se, Mr. Nice. And the movie is set in the period of when he grew up and when he was a hash smuggler, and it just, it's sort of like Blow, but it doesn't have the sort of the downside of it. Maybe because he was only a hash and marijuana smuggler and he didn't go to the dark side of cocaine smuggling. People remember Blow, like half the movie is marijuana, half the movie is cocaine, and it kind of goes, precipitously downhill in the second part of the movie. Kind of a bummer. This movie's not so much the bummer, even though, he goes to jail, but he kind of gets out. I don't want to give away too much, but if you read the book, people would know anyway. He didn't spend his life in jail like the Johnny Depp character in Blow. And it just takes you through the era. It's kind of a fascinating story because not only was he a hash smuggler and he went to Pakistan and Afghanistan, brought back loads, he was actually doing some of the work in behalf of the Irish Republican Army, and he was helping them smuggle so they could actually turn the hash money into arms. He also, was a bit of a double agent at times, though he did narc. He never snitched, but he sort of had his hands on a lot of things, and he's kind of like a Walter Mitty character who kind of walks through all kinds of danger, and he kind of escapes it all. Chloe Sevigny plays Judy, his wife, and she's pretty well known for the Big Love role that she has on HBO and other movies she's been in over the years. It's just a fun movie by and large. I mean, lots of spliff smoking. They have a really interesting scene of making of hash in Karachi, I believe it was, in the movie. So it's just really, really up our line. It's the type of movie that I think, your listeners and my readers would love. The only problem is that it's not getting like that oftentimes don't if they don't have a big name attached. Now, Rhys Ifans might be a big guy over in England, and this movie was released last year, but it's taken quite a bit to get it released here. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to get a big theatrical release. It's opening in New York today. It might have a couple of other theaters around the country, but I do recommend people go to their Netflix or on demand and find Mr. Nice. As far as The Hangover 2, that's everybody kind of knows about that movie already. It's just great. If you're a fan of the first, which I really wasn't so much a fan of the first. I didn't see it originally. I saw it on Netflix. I'm like, what's the big deal? The second one kind of really works for me. Maybe I got used to the way the story is told, the backwards way of telling the story. The guys wake up and, in a hangover and they have to figure out what happened to them. This one's set in Thailand, so that's a little bit more interesting eye candy than just looking at, the layout of Las Vegas. And it's the same guys, Ed Helms, Zach Galifianakis, and Brad Cooper, kind of getting into sort of mayhem. And, we're big fans of Zach Galifianakis these days. He's the reigning stoner of the year up at Celeb Stoner for all his antics last year, and he's become a favorite of Todd Phillips, the director of The Hangover, also Road Trip and other cool movies like that, Old School. Now, he's becoming a huge, money-making director. He also did Due Date with Zach last year. So most of his movies have some type of drug theme. This movie, it's coke. Yeah. They don't really show too much of it. One character, the Ken Jeong character, is sort of a coke freak. And then in the later portion, when they kind of give away all, the antics that happen, via a cell phone, camera, you get to see some of the cocaine, craziness. It's a really fun movie, so I do recommend both.
Yeah, and you know what? I always see that when I saw the first Hangover movie come out, fine movie. It was fun, slapsticky, good, clean fun, but so to speak. But the thing that always gets me about these things is essentially we're talking about a movie that's about a drug overdose leading to blackout. and antisocial behavior, right? And it seems like we have alcohol movies that are that way, where the characters get drunk. Old School, for example, with Will Ferrell. We have pot movies that are that way, and anything from Cheech and Chong to Harold and Kumar, where people are smoking a lot of weed. Do we see movies that take that kind of comedic turn in any other drugs other than pot and alcohol, like coke or meth or heroin or anything? Those always seem to be the downer movies.
Well, it's probably a little less accepted, certainly. I mean, I guess, The Hangover is a loose term for getting really fucked up. Yeah. So that fucked upness is not just alcohol. Yeah. So the thing that's sort of lacking in this movie, it's set in Thailand. How about some Thai weed? Yeah. Where's the Thai weed? There's not one burning ember of a joint in the movie. And it's a little disappointing in that respect because Todd Phillips is a really good director, and he's always kind of included that. Any fan of Road Trip will know that he, did a great job with marijuana in that movie. There's lots of marijuana in Due Date, lots of gags about medical marijuana with Zach as the lead character. This one, they kind of skipped it. But interestingly, maybe they're waiting for their next movie. I've heard through my trusty Hollywood insider, Shirley Halperin, my co-author of Pop Culture Review for Movie Madness, and now works for The Hollywood Reporter, that there's going to be a part 3, and it's going to be... So that's the good news. The bad news is they may not be able to get to go to a coffee shop.
Hey, Steve, you have to repeat that.
They'll have to get cards, and they won't be allowed. Hopefully, by the time they shoot this, all these rules and regs won't have happened, or maybe they'll be able to stall it in Amsterdam so they can actually shoot their movie.
Okay, sorry, we got a little bit of Skype static when you told us the good news. So the good news is Hangover 3.
The good news is that the third part of the Hangover, the third one that they're going to shoot, is going to be filmed in Amsterdam.
Okay, Hangover 3.
So it's kind of like Harold and Kumar go to Amsterdam for the number 2, which really was loosely the title. Yeah. Escape from Guantanamo Bay, but really was go to Amsterdam. They were trying to, but never quite got there. Right. And now this one, they're going to set it up in Amsterdam. So that's where all the fun and sort of mayhem is going to happen. So obviously there'll be a lot of weed in part 3.
Yeah. When I think about it, I think that we got this movie, The Hangover. The pitch for it would be these 3 guys get really drunk and pass out, and they wake up the next morning and try to figure out what happened. If you pitched it as, all right, these 3 guys do some heroin and they pass out, they wake up the next day and wacky hijinks ensue. Anyway.
To be honest, it's not just about getting drunk. I mean, this movie, clearly they were doing lots of cocaine in the storyline. They don't really see a lot of it, but later on you find out that was part of their hangover. So the hangover is not just getting drunk; it's definitely doing drugs. It's a question of what, In the first one, I'm not even sure. I don't remember what kind of drugs were involved in the first one. I kind of forget. But this one is a little more clear. That's cocaine as part of the bender.
All right. Well, let's talk about some other things in the entertainment realm. Of course, right now the NBA Finals are going on, and we've done numerous stories on the NBA all-bus teams. Major League Baseball is getting into the swing right now. So do we have any sports news to let our listeners know about?
A little quiet on that, fortunately, on the bus front. But, I mean, if I kind of look back and just see what's, happened in the last few months, I mean, it hasn't been, too heavy on the NBA side. Most of the arrests are usually NFL related, and I think that has to do with the fact that there are 40 to 50 players per team, so it adds up, whereas the NBA, it's 12 players. And usually in baseball, not too often. I mean, the latest busts were Alex McGee of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was busted for pot back in May. And there was an NBA player, Dante Cunningham, was arrested in a Philly suburbs. That was the first NBA player. He's with Charlotte. He was the first busted in a while. There's the story about, in football, Janoris Jenkins, who's the Florida all-SEC cornerback who got arrested a couple of times in the last few months for marijuana, was dismissed from the team despite being all-SEC, and now is going to go into, I think, the supplemental draft to go into the into the NFL. He just paid a fine this week for $420. So we thought that was kind of ironic.
Yeah, the $420
Yeah, it added up essentially to his court costs and his fine added up to $420. But right now, and in the baseball world, we like to follow Tim Lincecum.
Yeah.
He's our guy. Obviously he helped lead the Giants to the World Series last year. He's 5-4 this year. The Giants are tied for first place in the West with Arizona, and he's having a good season though. He's not really have a lot of wins, though. He's got a lot of strikeouts and he has a good ERA. So we follow him regularly. As far as the NBA playoffs, there's no really stony angles that I can really think of, to decide, who you might want to root for. I mean, it's the Heat, versus the Mavs, and there's nobody on those teams that are really noted for their marijuana use or having gotten arrested in the past for it. Dwayne Wade has a little connection to that, but, not really enough to really, make a big point out of it. So, I don't know, it's really even hard to choose, who to root for. I guess go for the underdogs. Let's go Mavs.
Yeah. All right. And let's talk about that press conference that was just recently held with regard to all of those former world leaders and that big international coalition that got together and said that the war on drugs is a failure. I understand you were there?
I was there yesterday. It was organized by the Drug Policy Alliance, hosted by Ethan Nadelman, and a lot of big wigs, a lot of former presidents of Brazil and Colombia were there, representatives, officials from Switzerland and Germany. There was all kinds of languages, super global approach yesterday. But the one real celebrity in the house was Richard Branson, who probably people know from being the mogul behind Virgin Records, Virgin Airlines, Virgin, the record stores, Virgin everything, Virgin going into space, and so he got a lot of attention. He's got the really, sort of celebrity good looks, and he just came back from Morocco, it seems, because I read something on his website that he was in Morocco 2 days before. He had a really red face. I guess he was out there, in the sun, and so basically, his comments were pretty similar to what we're hearing a lot lately from a lot of celebrities. There's a better way of dealing with cannabis. Cannabis should be regulated, could be taxed. He compared it often to tobacco and alcohol and how it really should be the same. He made, pretty much standard points about treating drugs as health issues and not law enforcement. So it's pretty much standard stuff that we've heard all the time. But it's good to hear from a guy like him who got a lot of media play yesterday, did a lot of interviews, and repeated that stuff over and over and over again. So a lot of people will get to hear it. So it's good it was coming from him. And interestingly, also, this is kind of like the British celebs are sort of taking the lead in this particular campaign, to challenge the war on drugs, to get a discussion going about how we can sort of, move in another direction. And at the same time, yesterday in London, there was a letter sent to Prime Minister David Cameron urging them to reconsider the UK's drugs policy. And the signatories on that, in addition to Branson, were Sting, Dame Judi Dench, Julie Christie, and Mike Lee, the director. So you got some pretty heavyweight people there behind that. And Sting sent out a statement saying, giving young people criminal records for minor drug possession serves little purpose. It's time to think of a more imaginative way of addressing drug use. So, I mean, obviously these guys, they're really jumping on board a little bit more so than we see on the U.S. end. So it'd be nice to see the counterparts here in the U.S. doing what the Brits just did.
Yeah, that would be nice. And the other thing too is that Sir Richard Branson has always been pretty open about his use. I remember you telling us a story a while back about him and his 19-year-old kid at the time.
I'm not sure what that story might be, but he does have a son, Sam, who was there, by the way, at the press conference yesterday. He does admit to his use, and he sort of soft pedals it. He doesn't really want to play it up too much. And he did make a comment that. It wasn't my favorite comment of the day, and it was also just kind of catching him doing, side interviews afterwards and seeing what he has to say. People pumping him with a little question here and a question here. But he said people who take drugs should be treated as patients, not as criminals. But in my mind, you have to differentiate what drugs. To me, a marijuana user is not necessarily a patient. You may be, but you may not be. Mm-hmm. And whereas, somebody else uses hard drugs and has an addiction problem, there you have a patient or somebody who has medical and health needs versus a marijuana user. I guess we could talk about this endlessly, but so I feel like, he has to clarify his distinctions a little bit too. But, his points were sort of well taken, and he got a lot of attention. So, it's a good thing. I mean, it was at the Waldorf Astoria. It was, very high end in terms of the profile of the event. It was actually, tucked away in a penthouse way up in the 33rd floor, almost hard to find. And then when you got there, it was super crowded. It was really hard to even kind of get inside or get a word in edgewise too. They could have used a bigger place. It was lots of languages being spoken, a lot of stuff being repeated in Spanish. They took some questions via like a telephone hookup as well, so they were trying to do some technical stuff that was brought other people in. So it was good. They just needed a bigger space for the large crowds they had there, but they did a good job. They got a lot of attention. I think most of the press was probably international than domestic though.
Hey, I've got a story here that I just saw come up through my Twitter feed, and I wanted to get your take on it, and I don't know how much you'll know about it, but it's coming from MTV News here, and the headline is Kid Cudi calls marijuana video, and the video for his song Marijuana, an RIP to my smoking career. It's the last time you will ever see me smoking, Cudi tells MTV News of the Shia LaBeouf directed clip.
Well, it's kind of curious, how this is all playing out with Kid Cudi and his marijuana use. He right around 420, the story went out that he had stopped smoking, and that was just a few days. Was right after he appeared at the High Times event in Denver, and apparently did some smoking there. But then he's sort of like taking a break, and now this video comes out, and the video is set at the Cannabis Cup where he performed back in November. And Shia LaBeouf, who's also one of our celeb stoners, was there in tow with Kid Cudi, apparently shooting. Interestingly, I had heard that Shia was there. I had asked anybody, have any photos of Shia at the Cannabis Cup? No, because apparently, he wouldn't allow it. But that was the reason why he was there. I didn't know that he was there to shoot this video, which has taken a little while, but finally they put it out. The marijuana song has got a lot of attention now that the video's out, and I'm kind of surprised, because Cudi's smoking nonstop throughout the video. I'm kind of surprised that he would make that statement. Now, what I've heard from my friends over at High Times is that he is dealing with, legal issues going around. I believe unless it's resolved, and I missed it, but I don't think his arrest that he had in New York a year or more ago that had something to do with cocaine and him getting a little violent, knocking down a door, having some sort of domestic dispute with a girlfriend in New York. I think he's trying to kind of lay low until that's resolved. That was my impression from what I was told from High Times. Now, I'd have to check and make sure, if that's really 100% accurate. So it seems funny. I mean, I don't know why he would put that video out and then, not really stand by it, or this is the last time you're going to see me smoke. I don't believe it. I just think he's just laying low. It's almost like the Snoop Dogg thing a few years ago when Snoop Dogg said he wasn't smoking pot anymore.
Yeah.
He was dealing with legal charges, and he had to really lay low. And it's probably like his manager is telling him, hey, listen, you really got to, you can't get in any more trouble in this regard, or they're going to throw the book at you. You don't want to go to jail. You don't want to be on home arrest like Lindsay Lohan or whatever it is. So I think that's what it is. It seems odd that he would be really disavowing his support for marijuana, other than for that reason.
I was at the Denver Cup, and I can pretty much confirm everything that Steve said.
Yeah. Hey, mute my PC for just a second. I'm going to pull this MTV video up here, and I just want to make sure it doesn't have any ad or anything at the beginning. But let's see what he says here in this. Content will return shortly. So we'll wait for that to load up, and then we'll switch over to it.
That's a video to MTV where he's talking?
MTV.com, right. It's got one of them little short 15-second ads, so we'll let that run out here. But I'll give you a chance to listen to this, Steve, once it comes up here. But yeah, I think you're on the right track here as far as, just trying to damage control for some of these situations that he's been in. So that could be what's going on here. But again, this is at MTV.com. Kid Cudi calls marijuana video an RIP to my smoking career. Let's go to that clip from MTV News. Oh, hold on. I think I muted my computer on this side too. So let's fix that first. And then we will go to that clip from MTV News. And here we go right now.
Shia originally reached out through my buddy Cage about doing a short film for Maniac, which we completed in November last year. But when we were starting that up and getting that together, or I think, while we were brainstorming that, I had the gig to perform in Amsterdam, and I was thinking about ways to do a video for marijuana, and because I knew I wanted to do something, I wanted to do the right thing, and it just hit me one day. I was like, yo, I can have Shia come with me and film the whole trip, and we could do it like real vintage documentary style of the entire trip. I mean, what could be iller than that, because I was going to be a judge at the Cannabis Cup. That's why in the video you see there's a bunch of trees and stuff like these jars. I was judging, different strands of weed, for the competition, which was cool. It was an honor, and High Times reached out, and, they've been supportive since day one. So I was thinking, and I hit him up, and he was like, let's do it. It's something I did before I decided to quit smoking marijuana. And, however, I didn't want to deprive people of the footage, deprive people of the video because of my personal decisions. It was almost like a RIP video to my whole smoking career, because that was a big, memorable moment for me. And watching it reminds me of those good times we had. And that's kind of like, what it is. It's kind of like the last hurrah, the last time you will ever see me smoking, and it was like the peak.
Right.
It's like, people be like, man, why'd you quit? Yeah, it's like, why'd you quit? I was like, man, I've been doing it for a while. And then I went to Amsterdam. I mean, it doesn't get much higher than that. You know what I mean? And it was a good experience.
Yeah, that's MTV News there on the and Kid Cudi. Speaking of the last time you'll ever see him smoking.
I don't believe it.
Yeah,
I don't believe it.
I don't either.
I think it's false banned. This guy's too young to stop smoking weed, and he's too enmeshed in marijuana culture right now. Well, you know who will know the most about this? Danny Danko.
Yeah.
Ask him about it the next time you talk to him, because he's buds with Kid Cudi, and he will give you and also Rick Cusick, who told me a few things about the High Times event in Denver with Kid Cudi. So ask the High Times crowd for the real skinny on Cudi.
All right, we'll do that. Steve, we've gone a little long.
But I was speaking of High Times, I'm running out the door now to go to the High Times DC Comics softball game, which is about to start at 5:30. It's part of the New York Media Softball League, which I'm the commissioner of. I used to run the Bong Hitters as the coach when I worked at High Times and left High Times, and now run the league, which is a 6-team league, and the season is just starting to get going. So it's the first one of the first games of the season. So I got a foot out the door, so I'm excited about that. My other thing that I'm doing coming up is June 25th, the New Jersey Medical Marijuana Expo in Atlantic City.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you next time we see you, and good luck to all the High Times team out there, and we'll talk to you again in a couple weeks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for the long session.
No problem. Take it easy.
Bye.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
All right, folks, not enough time for a real good long rant here with that Kid Cudi information. But, I saw that come up and we got Steve on the line, and I figured, how perfect is that? Let's talk to him about that. But I did want to expand a little bit on, Attorney General Eric Holder and his recent words here in Rhode Island, where he said they would get around to speaking to the governors in the medical marijuana states to see how they might go about setting up a good dispensary system, one that the federal government can get along with. I don't know how they're going to, accomplish that, because the federal government's kind of tied into this issue in a lot of legal ways, and one of them is through the Single Convention Treaty with the United Nations. The United Nations Single Convention Treaty basically says that if nations are going to have these certain substances, these controlled substances, the government has to keep real close eye on them, and has to, in the case of cannabis or other crops that are being grown, have a single supplier for those crops. In the case of the United States, the National Institute of Drug Abuse, with the cannabis farm at the University of Mississippi, fulfills that role. So given that the federal government is going to want to try to stay with that federal pot farm at the University of Mississippi and El Soli's contract there, I don't see how they get around to allowing states to then also produce cannabis. That would I think, be in violation of that single convention treaty by not having one single federal location at which these plants are grown. So that leads me to wonder if Eric Holder and the folks on the federal side are thinking that they're just going to get all the states to use some of that University of Mississippi marijuana, the same sticks and stems and seeds that Irv Rosenfeld and L.V. Musica and George McMahon and the other patients on the investigative new drug program have been dealing with it. And if that's the case, we don't want that kind of dispensary. That's definitely not what we want here. The government's just going to have to realize that this is going to happen at the state level, and there's not going to be one single point of control. And furthermore, you don't want one single point of control. We want to have multiple strains. We want to have multiple growers. We want to have many people working on making these strains better and developing better vigor throughout these hybrids and such. To have a single source would be detrimental to not just the patients, but the plant itself. You look at other crops like corn or potatoes, and they get bred to a certain type. And then, when a blight comes, it wipes out the whole crop, and they don't have any genetic immunity. Let's not let that happen to cannabis. Let's keep it diverse. Let's have it grown throughout the states by many people and many growers.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll stay with you another hour live. For those of you listening on the podcast, we'll be back next week with more news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community. For Ganja John and Cannabis Carrie, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for tuning into the NORML Network, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.